live back in a bed, meditate, I think I should. No, we ain't friends, got me on.
With the release of Lil Yachty's newest album, Let's Start Here, and his take on psychedelic rock, it had the internet in a chokehold. So, it got me thinking about other rappers who have tried their hand at a full-length rock-inspired LP. Today, I'm going to talk about rap artists who have tried rock, go over some albums that I listened to in the last few days, and give you my opinions and thoughts on artists who are trying such an endeavor. So this video, I'm not really going to be including rap/rock infusions like City Morgue, Ghostman, etc., a lot of underground stuff, because they're kind of in their own lane of combining genres. I'm not really including rock artists who rap in their music like Rage Against the Machine, and I'm also not going to be including rappers that use their white privilege to gain fame through rap and abandon the genre completely for something else that makes them more money. Glad we're all on the same page. So this first album I'm going to be talking about here is Lil Wayne's 2010 release, Rebirth, which was pretty much my introduction to rappers who went rock. I've heard this album back in the day, way back before, but all these albums I revisited for this video, listened to them a few times, really got my thoughts and stuff about the tracks. So, Rebirth, 2010, 13 years old at this point, and an album that is 13 years old, and an album from Lil Wayne who tends to set the trends. This album sounds a little dated, alright? This sounds kind of, especially the instrumental, it's pretty generic or like stereotypical rock. I mean, artificial. Like, I don't really know how much this album is real live instrumental, but a lot of it just sounds like samples or something. This album reminds me of Monster Energy and Tony Hawk Pro Skater, which makes sense because it is a Lil Wayne album from 2010, so hits the mark right there. But I will say about this album, the vocal inflections were ahead of its time, and I mean, you know, Wayne's always been ahead of his time. He's always gonna be ahead of his time. He was doing these crazy vocal inflections on all his other albums, but especially on this rock album. You know, you listen to these rap rock infusions like I listened to earlier, and you hear some of these like crazy inflections and vocal tones and effects they put on their voice. Lil Wayne was doing it on this album. He really was. I was fucking with that. And like I said, to be fair, this is pretty standard for Lil Wayne, but I did want to add that, as, you know, we are comparing all these albums. And what I did like about this album is he actually had some rap features on there, like Eminem and Nicki Minaj were on the album, and they worked well. Alright, they kind of fit right in. It's not my favorite of the albums that I listened to. Like I said, definitely sounds extremely dated, but a good attempt. And these were my favorite tracks on Rebirth. So this next album I peeped into is the elusive Anthony Fantano's favorite album of all time, probably, Kid Cudi, Speedin Bullet to Heaven, which was released in 2015. Oh, yeah, I listened to this for the first time. I didn't know it was a 26-song album. It was like an hour and a half. This album, it was either hard and distorted or melancholy and soft, almost no in between. The acoustic effects and the acoustic songs in here are not good. Alright, I'm sorry, they're just not good. I will say the distorted vocal style that Kid Cudi was working with on this album was executed great. I'm not gonna lie, like, I feel like his voice actually really works well for this type of music, and especially the effects and post-effects he was putting on his voice for the time, but like, a lot of oversaturated moaning, random strange noises, screaming, screeches on the album. A little off-settling, especially with the Beavis and Butthead skits. That was, I didn't even know that was part of this album. I didn't even know Beavis and Butthead had skits on this album. I honestly thought they were kind of hilarious. So fucking random, though. So random. What I will praise about this album is it actually uses its instrumentation and, like, live instruments, artistic direction to kind of paint emotions, you know, of pain, sorrows, recovery, rather than just using instrumentation, rock instrumentation as a gimmick to just do something different. I could tell that, like, a lot of songs in here, you know, the instrumental really complimented, like, what he was saying, and I have seen praise about this album, and a lot of them is saying, you gotta be in, like, a dark place to appreciate this album, and I could see that, alright, I could see that for sure. He definitely used his sonic palette to his advantage on this, but it's still not crazy. Like I said, I did really like his voice, and this album had crazy potential to be a great album, but luckily, Kid Cudi did pick up the pieces in 2012 with his release with Dr. Genius Wizard, which was another take on a rock album, which is much better. And these were my favorite tracks from Speedin Bullet to Heaven. This next album I'm going into is Logic's 2019 release, Supermarket. Now, this is a soundtrack to his novel of the same name, and this is a alternative, more indie, acoustic rock take, and I actually enjoyed it. It's not as bad as some of these on here, okay? It's really not. I'm gonna rank all the albums at the end of the video that I'm going through, but this one, it's not that bad. It focuses more on, like, Logic's raw singing voice with, like, little autotune, rather than just, like, making these crazy sounds in the instrumental. There are a few tracks that have, like, instrumental shifts of, like, pop and even rap influences, but for the most part, it's pretty much focusing on Logic's voice. and also, for the most part, the tracks that kind of stray away from the alternative indie route, acoustic route, are the better tracks in here, in my opinion. Heavily influenced by Mac DeMarco, they even worked on a few tracks on this album together, and this was clearly made for fun. It's a soundtrack to his first novel ever. It's about, like, him falling in love with his current wife, you know. It's his first real public attempt at music like this, and it's not that bad, okay? These are some of my favorite tracks from it. Now, next, we got Neon Shark by Trippie Redd, 2021 release. Now, this was just interesting to me. Sounds a lot like MGK's music, you know what I'm saying, which makes sense with all the features on there. And of course, MGK works with Travis Barker almost exclusively this whole album. Travis Barker is on the drums for every song on this album, except for one, I'm pretty sure. So that's where you get that from. It's heavily influenced by like early 2000s, a lot of Blink 182 influence. Obvious. Travis Barker is all over this album, of course. You're going to get that sound. But I will say about this album, Trippie Redd singing, it's not really that different from his other music. Like, it's very pop-punk influence, but Trippie's voice is being used in a lot of the ways he's been using his voice for years on his hip-hop records or R&B records. So I do enjoy that, like, Trippie really, he's talented. He's talented. He can take his voice and his singing ability and really go on these other instrumentals and really, like, fit the mold. And this wasn't my favorite album of these, but I was surprised, alright? I had listened to this album before, like when it came out, but returning back to it, I was pleasantly surprised. There were some good tracks on here. Definitely a good effort, a recent effort at this. These were some of my favorite tracks on it. Dead Desert, so hard. Now, the last album I'm going to be covering is the new album that everyone is enjoying so much, Lil Yachty's Let's Start Here 2023 release. Now, like I said, this is a psychedelic rock album with hints of pop, rap, R&B throughout, but focuses heavily on the psychedelic aspect of rock. Okay, heavily. This album was made on shrooms. He tells everyone to take shrooms before he listens to it. Stuff like that. So, we kind of saw this coming. This album was made about 2 years ago, and Lil Yachty did have that Tame Impala remix that came out, so, which I really liked, and kind of put him right into this lane perfectly, knowing this album was going to come out after this song. It was like a perfect fit. You know, it was a perfect fit for him. And this is the most experimental of the albums we're covering. Extremely experimental, trying different sounds. And it's not anything that hasn't been tried before. I mean, go back to Pink Floyd, Tame Impala, even Gizzard what the fuck is that band called? The King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard? You know what I'm talking about. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. I'm not too educated on that shit, but I do know there's heavily influences from those artists and bands. So we gonna keep that in account. All of these albums are pretty derivative since they are rappers trying rock music for the first time, really. Like, it's kind of a given, but I will say Lil Yachty's, despite it being derivative in that way, it's incredible. I want to say incredible. It's good. Alright, it's really good. Alright, it's really fucking good. It takes a lot more risks than the rest. You know, he's trying things that I don't think anyone ever saw Lil Yachty ever doing ever. And he had some R&B singers on here to add to that, like Fushi, Tizo Touchdown, Daniel Caesar. They all had incredible vocal performances and fit the vibe of the album well. It's hard to put this album even in a genre, but psychedelic rock seems to fit it the most. These were some of my favorite tracks on the album. So if I had to rank these 5 albums that I went over, starting with number 5, you know, Kid Cudi, Speedin Bullet to Heaven, not my favorite. Honestly, dislike this album. I really did dislike this album. And number 4, Trippie Redd, Neon Shark, a little bit better, you know. It may sound a little more generic than Speedin Bullet to Heaven, but I think it's better. Number 3, we got Lil Wayne, Rebirth. It does sound dated, you know, it does sound super Mountain Dew, you know what I'm saying? Super Monster energy, but Lil Wayne's the GOAT, okay, and he started a lot of this shit, so we gonna give him his credit right here. Number 2, we got Logic Supermarket. It's not that bad. These tracks that I liked from it, you know, Bohemian Rhapsody, Can I Kick It, DeLorean, I Love You Forever, they're so good. They're really so fucking good. I really enjoy Logic singing stuff like this, and it's not gimmicky, alright? Logic's really trying to sing, you know what I'm saying? He's trying to actually sing. No gimmicks there. I'm fucking with that a lot. It's probably one of my least favorite Logic albums, but in terms of comparing it to these, it's got to go in that number 2 spot, and you saw it coming, the number 1 spot, Lil Yachty. Let's Start Here. Incredible. My favorite album of the year so far. I think he did a great job at his attempts on psychedelic rock. Super great execution. The risks were very, very worth it. I'm glad he's getting his flowers because he deserves it. So do you think we will continue to see rappers try their hand at rock music? Do you think any other lanes will be fulfilled? Do you think these artists that I listed here will continue to try different things, different genres of music? I definitely think they will, especially when it comes to like Logic, Lil Yachty. I definitely think other genres of music are going to be created from those two artists, and probably some of the other ones on here as well. But I'm all for artists reaching out and trying new things. I don't want artists to be in a box. I call these artists rappers for the video, but really I don't even like using the word rapper because we are all artists. What is even genres nowadays? Everyone's mixing everything together. So seeing creative stuff like this, regardless of the critical reception it may have, I love it. I do. I really do. But that's about all I got for you guys today. If you enjoyed watching, make sure you subscribe, hit the bell so you don't miss any videos, any updates, any hip-hop news, anything like that. We go crazy on the channel, so make sure you check it out. Go in the description, follow my TikTok, my Spotify, my Twitter, and my Instagram down there too. And yeah, it's been Bryce. Peace.
Can't I picture little Bobby, just a young run around with his bands, hammer in his hand, feeling like a man. Run for the pole, get the gun, put it in your